Hi, it's Doug. You know that human beings have gotten good at changing how animals look. We saw how people took a wolf sized dog and over many years, over many generations, turned it into all kinds of different breeds: small dogs, huge dogs, spotted dogs. It's the process you learned about, called selection. But are there other things that might make selection happen? Could selection happen without human beings involved? By the end of today, you'll be able to figure out the answer to that question. In order to find out the answer, you're going to play a game. It's called Lizard Island. Even though it's just a game, it's based on a real place, using real work that was done by scientists. The game involves a story about creatures like these. Have you ever seen these kinds of lizards? They're lizards that can actually climb directly up the side of walls or trees. This one's climbing up a wall. The most famous of these, like this one, are called geckos. I say they're famous because you can usually find them in any pet store, and they even show up in some TV commercials. But there's another kind of lizard that can do this too, similar to a gecko. It's a lizard called an anole. Now, if you've ever been here to the US state of Florida, home of Disney World, then it's hard not to notice anoles as you walk around because they are everywhere. In Florida, there's actually two totally different kinds of anole, and we're going to talk about both of them. One is a big brown kind of anole, and it's called the brown anole. The other is a smaller green one, and it's called the green anole. And this is what our game is all about. You see, one of these species didn't always live in Florida. Before the year 1941, there was just this, the green anole, not the brown anole. The brown anole came from an island nearby. Now, as you can see in this video, green anoles eat insects. Got it right there. Yummy cricket. Now, green anoles are also climbers, and they're able to go high up into the trees if they need to, whether that's to find more insects to eat or to get away from a predator. What makes them good climbers, like any climbing lizard, is that they have these sticky scales on each of their toes. That's what you're seeing here. But in 1941, the brown anoles arrived in Florida. They eat insects too. There's one problem though. Brown anoles are big enough that they don't just eat insects. They also can eat green anoles. Now, I know what you might be thinking. Oh, poor green anoles. Luckily for the green anoles, the brown ones aren't as good at climbing. See, on their feet, brown anoles don't have nearly as many of those sticky toe scales. So without all the sticky toe scales that green anoles have, brown anoles just don't climb as well, and they usually stay close to the ground. Green anoles, on the other hand, usually have around 20 or more of these sticky toe scales on their big toe alone. So in general, green anoles are better climbers than brown anoles. Once the brown anoles arrived in Florida, what do you think happened to the green anoles? What do you think happened to the green anoles once the brown anoles arrived? You're going to try to figure out the answer to this question yourself. You know an important clue already. Remember this idea? No two individuals are exactly alike. So not all green anoles have the exact same number of sticky toe scales. That means even though all green anoles can climb up into the trees, some green anoles are better climbers than others, because some green anoles have more sticky toe scales than other green anoles. The more sticky toe scales a green anole has, the better it climbs. In order to find out how well any green anole can climb, we've got to catch it and count its sticky toe scales. We need to do that for the green anoles that are on the island before the brown anoles arrive. The invasion of brown anoles on Lizard Island has caused our groups of green anoles to change. More green anoles now have more sticky toe scales than many of them did before. All of this has been a lot like selection. Remember when the ancient Chinese royalty wanted tiny dogs? How did they get them? They chose the smallest dog they could find to be a mother, and then for the father, they chose the smallest dog as well. And so those two smaller dogs had small puppies. Then the ancient Chinese royalty raised these puppies and took the smallest boy dog to be a father and the smallest girl dog to be a mother. And the puppies from those dogs were sometimes even smaller. So after many generations, the baby dogs being born were now much smaller than the original medium-sized wolf dog. Well, back on Lizard Island, there were no people selecting which green lizards would be allowed to have babies. And yet there was a kind of selection going on, wasn't there? The brown lizards did the selecting. Now, unlike human beings, the brown lizards weren't aware they were doing any selecting, but they were doing selection. They ate the green lizards that were not so good climbers, because those were the ones they could catch. But the brown lizards couldn't catch all of the excellent climbers and good climbers. So those lizards were able to have babies. And since babies tend to be like their parents, those babies had lots of sticky toe scales. So the green anoles have changed because of the brown anoles. Before the brown anoles came along, the green anoles spent more time on the ground, and only some of the green anoles were excellent climbers. But after the brown anoles invaded, now, because they've eaten up all the not so good climbers, a lot of the green anoles are good or excellent at climbing because they're the ones able to have babies. Now, here's something that may surprise you. Lizard Island is a real place located in Mosquito Lagoon in Florida in the United States. And it's loaded with green anoles and brown anoles. As we said, green anoles already lived in Florida. The brown anoles first showed up in Florida back around the 1940s. They're originally from the country of Cuba, but a few of them hitched a ride to Florida on cargo boats, which is how they get from one piece of land to another, such as on an island. They ride on boats. So these big brown lizards, they made themselves at home in Florida. Scientists saw that the brown anoles were taking over places where the green anoles lived, and they worried about the green anoles. Would the brown anoles eat all the green ones? Or maybe would the brown anoles eat up all the bugs, leaving the green anoles to starve? One of the scientists who wanted to find out the answers to these questions was this guy, Todd Campbell. He knew that there were a few islands in Mosquito Lagoon where only green lizards lived. This allowed him to see exactly what would happen if he let the brown lizard invade. Because these lizards don't like to swim across the water, an island acts like a cage, keeping the lizards in one place for scientists to study them. Here's a picture of the two scientists who studied the lizards of Lizard Island. They're boating from one island to the next, ready to catch lizards and count their toe scales, just as you did.